This is The Countdown, discussing tomorrow's news today as our top guests tackle the issues that matter with a sharp take on every story. And now, here are your hosts, Andrew Weeks and Onyx Duncan.
All right, a very good morning to you and welcome to another edition of The Countdown. My name is Andrew Weeks. We're coming to you live from our studios here in Georgetown, Guyana. We have with us the leader of the Alliance for Change, and he is in the green room right now. Onyx Duncan, my co-host, is also with me. Onyx, good morning.
Good morning to you, Andrew, and good morning to Guyana. I hope that you're having a blessed Sunday this morning.
Oh, it is the 8th of June already. We have a few months before general and regional elections, and things seem to be, what can I say?
Wobbling over.
We're getting surprises and surprises after surprises. The Attorney General want to become the legal advisor to the GCOM, and still want to become the Attorney General advising the government. I mean, what's this? I mean,
only in Guyana, Andrew.
I mean, come on. You see conflict of interest right there, but then again, these people they don't care about anything.
I've constantly said this, that the PVPC government is so barefaced, they would do that and they wouldn't even think about it. They won't think twice about it. They would just say that it's normal for them.
Plus, they went to Parliament and passed a bill to differential, to demarcate the region of Region 4. East Bank, East Coast, Georgetown Central. They're trying all sorts of things.
All sorts.
But the results will still be the same.
Exactly.
Out with the PVP. Out with the PVP. Look what Adriana. Look what they did to Adriana and her family.
Yeah.
Look what they did. They had to have Hakeem Jeffries come out and say we need a thorough investigation on this matter. You had other senators, other congressmen and women came out and said we need a proper investigation of this matter. And then bullops. 4 more wanted by the FBI, by the American for drug trafficking.
Including superintendents.
Officer.
The former commander of Region 1.
A sitting police officer.
Yeah.
The
former commander.
I don't know. Anyhow.
I think the U.S. has lost complete trust in the Guyana police force as it is right now. And there's no coming back from that after what has happened with this PVPC administration. I think they're taking note of it. And once they're taking note, they know that they can't go back there come 2025, September 1st.
I think they also lost complete trust in the government of Guyana.
Yeah, definitely.
Complete trust in the whole system, because if the ambassador of the United States of America in Guyana said, we are willing to help as long as the government say we need help.
Yeah.
Nothing. Not go on. Anyhow, we have the leader of the Alliance for Change in the green room, and we're going to ask him to unpack some of these things that we've been seeing in the press. People are calling for a coalition. Then they want a coalition, and then they say they want that the AFC want 55%, and then you're hearing this, and then you're hearing that, and then you're hearing that kind of story. Oh Lord, what more? How much more can we take?
Andrew, but before you bring in the lead, I think it's very important that I note as a member of the National Executive of the Alliance for Change that the AFC is ready. We are ready since before election was called September 1st, that we are ready to move on into government, because we have started our campaign, and we had a very successful campaign last Saturday there in Paradise, and it was really interesting to see a lot of people coming out and see a lot of young people even coming and share their thoughts and ideas. We did a walk around in Paradise, and we're planning to do so much more campaign. We have about eight weekends to go, but the work has already started. So the grounding session would have been started since last year, but we're ready. We're ready for elections September 1st.
We are ready indeed. you know. So let's bring in the leader, Nigel Hughes, in his Sunday best, casually. I want to say that casual Sunday best.
And you put him in the middle, please.
Mr. Leader, good morning. Yeah, the
Good.
center of attention, right?
Good morning, Andrew. Good morning, Onex. Always a
Good
pleasure
morning,
to
Nathan.
be in your
Mr.
program.
Leader, good morning to you and your family and to all the members of the AFC. We are in it to win it. And I
Indeed.
know
Indeed.
that the public, the voters out there are very concerned about this whole coalition. Let's put this whole coalition matter to rest. Because a lot of people are asking, is there going to be a coalition? Is there going to be an APNU AFC? Is there going to be a T Mohammed and an Alliance for Change? Is there going to be a T Mohammed and a Nigel Hughes coalition? Let us put this whole thing to rest, sir. Finally, what is your thoughts on all these things that have been happening in the press and in the public domain pertaining to your candidacy and pertaining to alliances for a coalition within or among the AFC and its partners? What are your thoughts?
Okay, so thank you again for having me on the program. Andrew, in relation to coalition, as you know, we entered into an MOU with the People's National Congress, APNU, which set out a period for us to discuss and explore the possibility of coalition. That period expired on the 31st of March, but before the expiration date of the MOU, I publicly said, and I repeat now, that the Alliance for Change's position is its leader and its leadership is prepared to step aside for a consensus candidate that will bring together all the political parties in a manner in which we have a real chance of winning. That remains our position if we identify a consensus candidate. At the time when I was asked that question, somewhere around the 29th, 30th of March, I indicated that they asked for a suggestion. I said, Mr. Campbell, but there's several people in Guyana who would fit that bill. Unfortunately, we didn't by that date arrive at a position that was acceptable to both. The door continued to be open. The announcement of the date of election was made, and we continued our efforts. The Alliance for Change continues to say two things. One, it is prepared to contest on its own. However, its doors are open for a coalition that identifies a consensus candidate that has a real chance of unseating the People's Progressive Party. And that is our position. In relation to Mr. Mohammed, who you asked about, Mr. Mohammed has made it very clear that he is not entering into any form of an alliance, and therefore I think that issue is closed because he has made his position clear. We have also been engaged in discussions with prominent national figures and people who have the interest of Guyana at heart and have had a history of speaking out about matters that are important to Guyana and about the future of Guyana. And it is our hope that we will enter into an arrangement which will see a very broad alliance of individuals, people from civil society, people of standing, who would join with the Alliance for Change and in presenting an alternative to the electorate, and most certainly to remove the People's Progressive Party from office.
Onyx, the mic is off.
Sorry. Given that nominations day is soon approaching, I know that you would have mentioned that you're still in talks with persons of national that has the ability to come to the forefront and lead Guyana. How effective is those talks currently in regards to another deadline upon us?
Oh, I think long before the nomination day, we will certainly, we will definitely arrive at the arrangement with those who want to come on board in a broad alliance. So I fully appreciate, and I think the party fully appreciates that July is fast approaching with nomination day, and I'm confident that before then we will announce what our broad alliance looks like.
Great.
All right.
Um,
Oh, go ahead.
What?
Next.
Question. I know that we really want to put the talk about coalition behind us. I just want to know from you, what is it that differentiates the Alliance for Change from other political rivals, other political party contesting these elections September 1st?
I mean, in terms of policy?
Policy, correct.
Oh yeah, our manifesto. I mean, I can give you aspects of
Or
it.
action plan. Let me correct you there.
Going forward, yeah. Clearly, we'll have a superior plan for the future of the country. I can go through, for example, education is going to be one of the cornerstones of that action plan. And just to give you an example, it's one of the areas that I feel quite strongly on. We just want to look at some data which we have to address as a priority. World Bank reports say that, look, 20% of our children are in extreme food poverty. And that report came out after the commercial production of oil had started. They say 40% of our children are in food poverty. And we know that 1 in 2, 48% of our children is dropping out of high school. Now, you can't really absorb and study if you're not well fed. You can't be in food poverty and really hope to have a real chance going through the school system. So we want to eliminate that food poverty, both the extreme and the food poverty, within a year or less of getting into office. Secondly, more importantly, if we're losing 1 in 2 people who enter secondary school and they're not being given a second chance now, we are going to set up what's called the National Skills Academy, which will allow, it will be a 9-month course. You will be trained in skills that are relevant for a modern Guyana economy, everything from oil and gas, logistics, scaffolding, all the new areas that require skills for the new economy. You will get certified at the end of the 9 months. We will give you the tools in the areas in which you have qualified and matriculated, so that we not only will teach you to fish, but we will give you the fishing rod. So if, for example, you after 9 months, you have got certified in scaffolding, which is very important for the offshore industry, we will also give you your toolkit, the harnesses and other things that are necessary, so that you can, one, either start your own business to provide services to the oil and gas industry, you'll have the certification, or 2, you are certified, qualified to be employed in that industry. What we know is that a lot of people don't necessarily have the natural ability to run businesses. So we will also set up for them financial advisors that will help them create the business plan and also create the plan to monitor the conduct of their business. So if it runs into difficulty, they would be able to assist and provide assistance to them. Now, for the regions, for Region 1, we are going to reestablish the palm oil processing plant at Wanu, given that there's a burgeoning global demand for palm oil. 2, we will develop and support the non-traditional crops like root crops, local and regional exports, particularly aimed at the CARICOM market. In Region 1, we will establish a fast ferry from Georgetown to Mabaruma to Port Kaituma, similar to those fast ferry vessels that you've seen in Trinidad and Tobago. We will upgrade the Mabaruma wharf facilities for export to the Caribbean. We will put down a gravel road between Mabaruma, Port Kaituma, Matthews Ridge, Buckhall, and Supanam. And that will connect with the road to Baramita. So you'll be linking Mabaruma to all the main population centers. In Region 2, we're going to actually upgrade the Supanam stelling to a commercial stelling. So it will have the ability to move commercial goods on a large scale. We will increase the agricultural production in Region 2. We will improve the drainage, and we will establish international port facilities at Charities so that we can get all the rice and the coconuts to the Caribbean. In Region 3, we will upgrade the Parika stelling, and we will also upgrade the Vredenhoek stelling. This is to allow, again, commercial traffic for the road from Goshen to Parika will be paved, and we will have a roll-on, roll-off ferry between Goshen and Bartica. So literally, you will be able to drive from Georgetown to Bartica. You'll drive to Parika, go down to Goshen, get on the roll-on, roll-off ferry, and you're in Bartica. Region 4, our largest region. We will establish an urban transport center in Durban Park. So that will be a center where all the transportation that comes from all the regions, that's where it is. So if you were traveling from Corriverton and you wanted to get to Bartica, that hub would be in Durban Park. And what would then happen is that you would just take a bus from Durban Park that takes you all the way to Bartica, if that's where you were going. We will have a major reform of urban transport. So all the feeder buses will then leave Durban Park, and whether you're going to South, whether you're going down to Stabroek, whether you're going up to Kitty, that Durban Park will be the hub.
Like a Trinidad City Gate, if you want to call it that.
City
Right?
Gate, yeah, that's correct.
Jamaica has the same thing with the Harvard Tree.
Yep.
So we're also going to massively improve the port at Stabroek Market, and we're going to upgrade that water taxi facility. So it's going to become state-of-the-art, modern, and that entire area behind Stabroek Market will be improved. We will introduce and establish light rail between Diamond and Durban Park. So it won't only be the buses that are coming. We will have light rail running from Diamond to Durban Park, and we will also have light rail and rapid bus transit between Mahika and Durban Park. So in addition to the existing minibuses, we're putting light rail that will run from Diamond to Durban Park, which is going to be the urban transportation hub. And similarly, we'll do it from Mahika to Durban Park. At Clonbrook, on the East Coast, we will establish a deep water port. That's where all the studies say that port should be located. And we will establish a deep water port at Clonbrook. That has many uses, including commercial traffic coming from northern Brazil. For Region 5, phases 2 and 3 of the MMA project will be implemented to increase rice production. And in Region 6, the Upper Kanji Reservoir scheme to increase rice production will be open. We'll open up 1 million acres for agricultural development between Corriverton and Oriala, similar to the scale that is there right now in MMA. These are studies that have been done since the 1960s. So this is nothing new, and we don't necessarily need to be delayed by new studies. We will just upgrade the existing studies. We will develop Ibini and Kimbia as major agricultural centers for soya and corn production. In Region 7, hydropower development. There was a study done in 2018 called the Brugman study that says that what our energy demands are, and we're going to make sure that Region 8 is the center for that. We will have commercial agriculture in Region 8 in the Pacaraima villages. That's Pacaraima, Keto, Kurukubaru. We will have tourism in the Pacaraimas, and the specific projects will include upgrading the fully engineered gravel road from Anai to Lethem, and that connects at Santa Fe to Karasabai, which is over on the west, as you know, Karasabai, Monkey Mountain, PK, Keto, Kurukubaru. So literally, you will be able to drive from Georgetown on paved road all the way to Arnduke. So you drive, you cross the paved road at Purupukari. When you get to Karasabai, you turn west, head up to Monkey Mountain, PK, Keto, Kurukubaru, and Arnduke. And we will set up an agriculture research station for the Ministry of Agriculture at Pirara. In Region 9, major logistics hub for that road from Brazil that will come all the way to that deep water port at Clonbrook. fully activate the Lethem industrial area. We will establish and operationalize the Lethem free zone. Regional airport transport hub will be established at Lethem. We will set up an aerodrome there. We will also have the road upgrade from Fairview to Anai to Lethem, and it will become an inland transshipment transportation hub. So imagine a full aerodrome at Linden, at Lethem, sorry. And Region 10. Region 10 is one of those areas that we've earmarked for rail development. Region 10 is such a central part of the internal transportation systems in Ghana. If you've got going to Region 8, if you're going to Region 9, going to Region 7, you have to pass through Region 10. And we're going to make that the logistics center, particularly for mining. Linden already has a large airport. It was actually larger than Temeri before the expansion. And we are going to make sure that that now becomes fully operationalized, privatize the use of parts of it. Projects like Gayol Fuel Depot, which will make Gayol the center, huge tank farms at Linden, so that businesses that are operating in the interior don't actually have to come to Georgetown. There'll be a huge tank farm there. We will bridge the Essequibo at Kurupukari. You'll have a paved road that can actually take you, once you leave Linden, to Bartica. From Linden heading east, we will have, that's in the intermediate savannas, heading to Takama. We will establish large farms, and we will, of course, bridge the Berbice River at Takama, two-lane bridge similar to us at Wisma. And we will also, well, as you know, there's a new bridge coming to Linden. And that's just part of it. In terms of police reform, because that is a huge area, and I don't think people realize that where your law enforcement agencies are not trusted, it affects your business standing, it affects your country rating, it affects the insurance for commercial activities. And there has been, for decades, absolutely no serious oversight of the Ghana Police Force. And we will be establishing a civilian-led police review authority with full powers of investigation, full powers of prosecution. They will have their own investigators. They will have the legal apparatus that will allow them to subpoena, acquire, maintain the integrity of documents, and prosecute persons in the Ghana Police Force who have transgressed the law. So those are just a few areas of it. In terms of education, of course, what is critical to education, apart from what I spoke about in terms of the National Skills Academy, is we have to make sure that our teachers are compensated at a level that is above the average increased salaries that we will give, because we are prioritizing education. What we are going to do in education as well is we're not going to, this effort that we spend in the breadth of having people sit 18, 20, 24 subjects, we are going to convert that into in-depth, relevant subjects that are needed for the future of development. So we are not going to encourage children to sit 24 subjects. We are going to make that a lot more focused and a lot more deep in terms of what happens. And I mean, there are lots of other exciting things. In oil and gas, for example, the Petroleum Commission will be established. And I think David announced the other day our 18-point plan for oil and gas. And as you know, I believe we're the only party so far that has said that the contract would be up for discussion and renegotiation. So we have a pretty comprehensive plan. And the last thing I do want to share with you is that we will also establish a modern city which has state-of-the-art transportation and other solutions. And it will be designed by professional people that we will hire who are familiar with city development and city planning. And so this chaos and this confused program where we believe that the solution to our transportation problems is to put more cars on the road, in that modern city, It will have state-of-the-art trains and modern transportation solutions that you probably won't need to own your own car. You can if you wish, but what the city will be designed based on all the solutions that would make a city competitive, cheap electricity, convenient transportation solutions, housing that is relevant. So that the way it will be designed, Georgetown, for example, is quite well designed. It was designed probably about 150 years ago. It is laid out rectangularly. So we are going to, in this new city, create what would be a city built for the next 20 to 30 years. And we will hire the best international experts to help us design that city. Of course, it's going to have to be on one of our major rivers. I don't want to disclose that yet before we actually disclose our full plan, but that is just part of what it is. Allow me just one more minute. There were 5 areas that in July last year, the party identified as critical years for which we should have 15 to 20-year plans. What we also said is that all the political parties, and we will invite every single political party, civil society, and the experts to get together in those 5 areas. I'll only pick one now, which is education, but it'll be education, health, poverty reduction, international borders, and can't remember what the other one is. But I want to just indicate to you why, and I'm going to use education as an example. We will sit down with the PPP, with the PNC, with ANUG, WPA, and say, look, the most important thing for the future of this country is the education of its people. We want to move from a system which is failing right now. We're not attributing blame. We're not saying this because of the PPP we're failing or because it was the PNC before. We're just dealing with what the data says. That we can't afford to lose 1 out of 2 children out of secondary school. And more importantly, I think it was the World Bank earlier this year that says less than 5% of the kids in the Caribbean are matriculating with 5 subjects or more. So this is a dire condition in the Caribbean, but we're dealing with Guyana. So we're saying, look, folks, let's park the politics. Let's take education out of politics, and let's come up with a 15-year plan and how we move from where we are now to a world-class education system by any standards. And we agree that program, we agree where the resources have to be allocated, and we sign off that irrespective of who is in office, what we agree here is that this is the roadmap to move Guyana forward in terms of education. And so we're not going to have the backbiting and the cross-talk and the abuse on education because the priority is children. And we sign off on an MOU. It's a political agreement that it can always, of course, be broken. But that at least will allow us to have a 15-year plan or a 20-year plan. Because remember, we are in an era of artificial intelligence. We're in an era of rapid technological development. And if we're losing 1 out of 2 children out of secondary school, we're in a bad way. Secondly, a very high or an unacceptably high number of our graduates from university and secondary school, if given the opportunity, don't want to stay in Guyana. We got to change that. We have to change it so that the young people feel that they actually have a future in Guyana and that they don't have to be aligned to a political party or keep their mouth shut if they want to survive in Guyana. We have to change the environment for them. And what we are proposing is, of course, that we have the support and we change the environment for those graduates. So the University of the University of Guyana, for example, has to have a lot of money put into research. We have to attract international lecturers if we want to make sure that we are keeping par with what's going on. But I've spoken for too long, perhaps, in some of these plans. But I mean, the development of Guyana will take a lot of time to discuss. But we have plans we believe that are going to be better than others. We are not going to build the Heroes Highway and then got to build it back after 2 years and call that progress. That's not what we are about.
Follow-up question, Andrew. I know I had 2 questions prior, but
is that how you guys did it? Question?
like other administration prior to this current government. We've seen in the past where President Granger would have commissioned the Bertram's College of Education, and the government of the day went and shut that down, and they brought in gold. What is your plan in regards to education? And I know that you said that we will be commissioning a National Skills Academy. What is your plan in regards to gold? Would you revisit that and look at how it benefits?
No. Goal is not. Goal is not to me a practical solution for the Guyana situation. Let me. I'm not, and I'm not trying to throw shade anywhere. What you need here is an assessment of where we are and what we're trying to get in terms of tertiary education. So tertiary education will be a combination of three things. One, you have your domestic university, which needs strengthening significantly. So that means lecturers' pay has to go up. There has to be a lot more money in research. We have to identify those disciplines that are critical to the future development of Guyana, and I pick the obvious one, engineering. And we have to pour resources into that faculty to make sure the lecturers are all world-class, whether they're Guyanese lecturers or whether they're lecturers that we hire from overseas. So which means we have to make UG sufficiently attractive for people who are prepared to come to Guyana from other universities, live here and lecture for an extended period. So everything from housing to salary, etc., has to be globally competitive. Two, those of our children who show a lot of promise and perhaps UG can't necessarily offer the world-class education that is needed as yet, we will pay for them to go to on scholarships to the best educational institutions in the disciplines that they're interested and that are relevant to the development of Guyana. We will pay for them to go. I'll just share with you a very small experience I had many years ago when I was in university. When I was in University College London, the largest foreign component of the university students, and there weren't that many, came from Singapore and Malaysia. And they weren't coming only on government scholarships. So a lot of them were not necessarily bound by contract to go back. But the approach of the Singapore government and the Malaysian government then was that we send our better talented and our best talented to the best global institutions so that they learn, get certified, so that the country benefits from them being back here. They don't all have to work in the government, but if they are in the private sector, the entire standard in that industry will rise. So in engineering, for example, right now we don't even have a bill that says that if you're going to design a building, you have to have an engineer design that building, and the engineer has to be registered and certified in Ghana. We're not there. But to come back to the point I'm trying to make is that we have to send our people out to the best institutions. If you look at this recent problem that they've had at Harvard, where the present administration in the United States of America has said that they don't want, they're reducing Harvard's ability to attract foreign talent. Most of those students who are there, or a significant percentage of them, the largest single cohort, is Chinese. China is now technologically competing with the United States because it continuously sent its people to the best universities available globally to get them trained. And then they had the research facilities to come back. Huawei, for example, didn't get to where it is overnight, but it took leadership. And at the end of the day, we will provide the leadership that will transform this country so that it becomes globally competitive. And it's not just another rich country that has found oil, but it's a rich country that is competitive in every single area that it has identified that is important to its future, particularly in the non-oil industry.
Well, a lot to taking there. Nice promises, I like them. Common leader, you think
they're more than promises here, Andrew? These are commitments.
Exactly.
These are commitments. And I understand the comrade leader thing, but I'm not a comrade nor a
I
leader.
know, I know,
So
I know.
I am just, I am just, I am just Nigel, my
Nigel
friend.
Hughes. You prefer to be called a Nigel Hughes. Um, Mr. Hughes.
Not even
Um,
the mister, just Nigel.
okay, Nigel. All right. Okay, Nigel. Simple guy. No titles. Simple guy. Um, would you investigate gold?
Um, Investigate in terms you mean of the
Its
you mean of
operations,
the
its
misappropriation
operation,
of funds? Okay, so
function.
here's the problem with Ghana, and the short answer to that is yes, but I also want us to be very weary about getting into a witch hunt or being perceived to get into a witch hunt. No,
Yeah.
Guyana is so divided politically, even in cases where there has been obvious
Corruption.
misfeasance, corruption, malpractice. Once you start to investigate that at a local level, it's a short walk to it being called political prosecution, and we had that before.
Yeah.
So our proposal is, look, in those significant areas of corruption, especially where the country has suffered significant loss, we will hire the best international forensic experts to conduct those investigations, so that there can be some suggestion that this is the Alliance for Change going after its enemies. There can be a suggestion that, and I'm just picking this as an example, the Price Waterhouse somehow is targeting or has been hired to target the enemies of the Alliance for Change. We want to make sure that the state recovers what it's lost. But more importantly, we want to establish the systems that will prevent that level of hemorrhaging in the future. So we have to have robust anti-corruption systems. We have to have robust treaties with countries where money tends to flee to, so that we can recover the information necessary to be able to present in a court in Guyana. And in the countries where there has been criminal activity involving the use of funds from Guyana, we will work with the authorities in those countries to ensure, where the evidence is sufficient, that there are prosecutions. Because this has to be an effort to recover what belongs to the state. And we must also, at the same time, design and establish systems that are as impervious as we can make them to corruption. And the penalties have to be very clear. So that's what I would say. But like I said, if I hire Andrew Weeks, if you're a certified forensic accountant again and you're investigating somebody, the first thing they're gonna say, hey, he's a AFC man, what have you. So let's avoid that. Let's hire the best and the brightest. We got the funds, because the message has to be sent.
I got that. Um, I know that you mentioned education, oil and gas, public transportation, and so on and so forth. One of the biggest things we need to also look at, I think, maybe that policy has not come out as yet. Sports. One of the
Oh
biggest
no,
things.
sports. Oh no. We're gonna just we have a sports policy. Sports is the most critical, one of the most critical areas for education and child development. Um, if you look at Guyana, and it's painful, we have unbelievable talent, and I'm just picking athletics, for example. Athletics, swimming, you pick it, we have talent. Somehow our approach is 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks before whatever competition it is, Carifta Games, whatever games, we suddenly decide, we're going to have a training program and expect that is sufficient. We will make sure that every school in this country has a coach. We will ensure that those regions that show promise in specific sports disciplines, have the relevant coaches.
Resources.
In Region 9, for example, a matter of fact, in all the regions, we're going to make sure that all the sports grounds, all the community grounds are not only upgraded, but they're maintained by the state, because the community itself, the NDC, may not be able to raise sufficient funds to maintain the community ground. Today I was informed in Essequibo, if you see the state of the community ground, and it was abandoned because farm is not a traditional community that votes for the PPP. So sports particularly critical. And what we also have to do with sports, we know we have competent coaches here, is we have to look at the model, for example, Jamaica. Sports is a serious commercial investment as well. If you look at the equivalent of inter-school sports or nationals in Jamaica, scouts from the United States universities, scouts from UK football clubs and other clubs go to those sports to see the talent and recruit it. We want to make opportunities available. And I'm going to use Linden as an example. Linden consistently has performed at the highest level and produced athletes up at the highest level. And one would have thought that the first place that we would put down an all-weather athletics track would have been in Linden. Not because it votes for a particular party, but because all the data available says that's where our best athletes come from. What do we have? We have a cricket stadium. Very few people in Linden play cricket competitively. And an incomplete athletics stadium. That is, I think, bordering on criminality. We put an athletics track in Lenora, which is not necessarily known for producing star athletes. But the sports program will get significant resources allocated to it from Pee Wee level. Because whether it's athletics, whether it's football, whether it's cricket, we have to make sure that those young people who may be particularly gifted in a particular discipline have the training and support and the opportunity to be able not only to get to the highest level, Olympics, but apart from that, can make a career if they get spotted and they go play for Manchester City, or they go into a program that allows those that are talented to get there. That's what we have to do, which means that, for example, in football, we have to have the competitions at the levels in which we have we work at international standards, we have international referees, we have all the support systems, and we have to put money into this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Sports is not something that comes up because it's the season. Sports is something you have to do round the clock, and that requires heavy investment. And you can't, one of the big difficulties, and I say this from athletics, only because when I was much younger, much lighter, I was an athlete. Because a lot of the people that have the real talent in athletics or sports come from economically difficult backgrounds. So when they go into high intense training, their family may not necessarily be able to afford all that is necessary to allow them to perform at their best. And the state will do that. The state will make sure that during training, if we're going into, let's say, CONCACAF, or if we get lucky and we go beyond CONCACAF, that those footballers that represent us are supported by the state. And it's not as if, their families are going to be left behind. Because if you look at what sport has done for Jamaica, just look at what it has done for St. Lucia, the young lady that won the 100 meters at the last Olympics. It does an awful lot for your country. There was a time when there was a presumption that top athletic coaches could only come from the United States. And then when our good friend Usain Bolt came and his coach was Jamaican, his coach in Jamaica, Mr. Mills, you actually have the infrastructure. You have the tertiary level infrastructure already in the Caribbean, in Jamaica, that says this is the prototype of how you produce top world-class athletes. Same thing for cricket. We have to be able to do this, and this requires the allocation of resources, which we are committed.
I want to follow up there, Andrew. As a former athlete myself, and I graduated high school as senior all-round sportsman. And you spoke about...
Did you go to nationals? My question is, did you go to nationals?
He's an Allendale secondary boy.
Once. Yeah, correct. But because, and you spoke about persons who are very much inclined in the sports arena, come from a background that does not have good economic standing, I think it was best for me to, do away with sports, because I was in a training club, one of the best training club in Guyana, and I had to maintain myself, I had to work, and I had to do all of these different things. And you have a state, a country that does not support athletes to the highest level. We have athletes that are representing brands like.
We don't support athletes.
Athletes at all. At all. And I'm saying that because
allow me this.
Yeah.
That you must have seen, especially out of Kokwani and those places, real talent.
Mm-hmm.
And the parents can't even afford to get them to Linden, to get them to Georgetown. Can't, and it's scary.
Exactly.
This real talent, they can't even afford to move them, let alone just regularly feed them outside of their home. And then what they would need as a constant diet, etc. That's a dream. Now that's a crime for me. That's a real crime.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to share that.
Even in the interior to Nigel with the Ameranians and the football. Yeah. Oh my word.
Yeah. And they produce some of the best footballers, huh?
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to say this because I had a conversation recently with Raw Tony, who's big on sports. Our recognition towards athletes, especially those who have made it on the big stage. We have athletes who represent brands like Adidas. We have an athlete from BV, a Baronian, who is playing in the major league, who played with the like of Lionel Messi. And we have this government and the tourism authority placing ambassadorship on cricketers mostly, and they're not seeking other fields in sports to provide those ambassadorship too. So I want to know, when you become president, how will you support our athletes in Guyana?
Sure. Thanks for the opportunity. Long before we get to ambassadorship, at the starting stage, primary school, and I'm picking Kokwani because Kokwani has a history, for example, basketball and what have you. That school at that level, you see, it's not just, you don't come in at the secondary school and hope to produce genius athletes. You do, but the program will be fully funded literally from primary school. I have a nephew who lives in England, now senior secondary. When he was in primary school, he was a member of a football club, 6-7 years old, coach every Saturday, going to coaching, high level coaches. And you have to create and develop that pool. So our first commitment is at primary level at every school throughout this country. There will be a coach in the school who is trained to recognize this particular talents and trained to develop those talents. And we will fund, apart from the coaching of young people, we will fund those competitions and enter into arrangements with the private sector to sponsor competitions starting at that level. So for Pee-wee, we will encourage by various means, whether tax breaks and other incentives, large commercial companies to promote competitions in different disciplines. That is just at the start level. By the time you get from primary to secondary, you're at the stage where potentially with the right coaching and the right nutrition, you actually have a shot at being eligible to represent the country internationally at various levels, whether it's CARIFTA, whether ultimately at Olympics, whether at regional
games.
And again, with football, and I'm only using this as an example, it'll apply to cricket. We have to make sure from early our children can travel in the region first to compete against their peers.
Exactly.
So if you take young athletes, at 11, and we take them to Jamaica and they have inter-club, the club system, of course, has to be strengthened as well and supported financially, because, as I said, people that excel, a lot of people that excel at sporting disciplines just don't have the economic resources. And so apart from them being better off, we have to provide that support. And we have to make sure that they get exposed to what global competition is. We have to make sure they travel. They go to Jamaica, they compete. They go to Bahamas, they compete. They go to LATAM, you know, whether they go to Brazil and compete in a regional in regional events. Because we have to understand what it is like to compete globally. And the only way you can do that is if you have support. You can have some person whose mother is working as a security guard, as a single parent, to seriously support her daughter who has real talent at the level at which will allow her to become a world-class athlete. The state has to do that at this point. And therefore, we are committed. We understand how critical, forgive me for sounding a little emotive here, how critical that is. Because think about it. Imagine you have a Usain Bolt, but because his mother is single parent, because his mother can't afford for that kid to travel from Kokwani to Linden to compete, and worse yet more from Linden to inter-school sports at Lenora, and he ends up, nothing wrong with his mom's profession, as a security guard, because the talent he had, which could have made him world-class, was never supported. That is not acceptable. Not in an economy where we are making $70 million an hour. Sorry, not under an AFC administration.
Nigel, we boast to be the fastest growing economy in the world. And just about a month ago, two-time Olympian Emmanuel Archibald was in Facebook pleading with persons to assist him in going to on an international stint to represent Guyana. You know, he's asking for assistance in any form. How do we continue to boast to be the fastest growing economy in the world, and we have two-time Olympian coming on Facebook asking for support?
Let me just give you a comparison, because you're perhaps a little young. The fastest growing economy in Africa during the apartheid era was South Africa.
Yeah.
The fastest growing economy and the most stable economy in the African continent during apartheid was South Africa. So don't get distracted when people say you're the fastest growing economy, because you have to ask yourself what it is that causes you to be the fastest growing economy, and what you are doing with the resources of the fastest growing economy to level up the system. So this thing about fastest growing economy, with the richest country with the poorest people, people are struggling across the board with the cost of living. So this whole bluff about fastest growing economy, we got the poorest people. People can't make it. And I just go back to that example, because if you chose fastest growing economy in sub-Saharan Africa, the argument would have been, why get rid of apartheid if you got the fastest growing economy? So the fastest growing economy doesn't mean that you have the most equitable system for the distribution of the resources and for supporting people so that they have a chance. So let's park the fastest growing economy and let us look at the system that we have in Guyana and who it gives a real chance to level up, and whether it creates real business opportunities across the board for everybody that is eligible to get them. So I hear it, but I'm not moved by the language fastest growing economy.
Andrew, I know I've been saying a lot, but I got one more question for this segment. I know we're in an hour already, but Nigel, can you tell us, how do you plan on diversifying Guyana's economy beyond oil and gas? And I know you don't speak about oil and gas, but tell us, how do you plan on diversifying our economy beyond oil and gas?
Okay, so I think, with your permission, the listener has to understand why it is important to diversify your economy. The reason is that if you are dependent on one product, oil, and your profitability, let's say, is at $40 a barrel, second that drops to $20 a barrel, your entire economy is shot if you don't have anything else. So the economy, the non-oil economy, it is absolutely critical. The real measure of how we are performing economically is not oil. We don't create it. We don't run it. It was put there, and it's essentially run not by us. So we have to create non-oil areas. So we've heard, and we continue to hear, which is correct, that the import bill in the Caribbean annually is something, I don't know, some ridiculous number, $32 billion a year. Clearly, we can't get to 10% of that, but we have to start small. And that starts by investigating what does the Caribbean tourist market need and what constitutes that $32 billion. So we may pick, and I'm only picking a product here, pineapples. All pineapples are perhaps second to none. Sugar content may be high. And we have to look at, okay, what's the rate at which they're selling pineapples? 2, we have to look at what's the standard size? What does the market want for pineapples? What's the kind of look of the pineapple? What's the taste? You have to do that investigation. And what's the required shelf life? And then you have to work backwards. Okay, where's the best place for who has the best soil? I know canal number 1, canal number 2 to a less extent. And what do those farmers need to be able to produce the pineapples? Now, we can't expect the farmers to concentrate on producing high quality pineapples and still be responsible for marketing it. Can't happen. Not in Guyana at this stage, probably down the line. So the non-oil economy is particularly important. Now, gold, non-oil economy, but it's a primary product. We have to get to where our non-oil economy is both world market price for large-scale primary products, whether we're doing soya, the rest of them, soya, corn, but we have to look at where those soils are optimal and how do you move that product from where it is produced to market cheaply. We are sitting next to a monster agricultural country called Brazil. They have million-acre farms. So we have to understand that if we want to break into that Caribbean market, we have to produce a product that is globally competitive with price. We don't have a lot of experience in that. We've never been globally competitive in sugar. The only thing that we've been globally competitive with that we manufacture is probably rum. But we have to learn to get there. Non-oil economy as well, not just agriculture. You have to look at technology because that's where the new world is going. We have to look at technology. But to be able to become or even dream to become a technological leader, you got to have the foundation education. So people got to be qualifying, matriculating at the rate in maths, particularly. We can't be 31% field pass rate. We have to change the way in which we are teaching those subjects. So in that non-oil economy, if we're doing technology and technological development, we are producing large numbers of very well qualified or highly qualified students, particularly in maths and the other aspects of it. So that means that we have to put resources into the non-oil economy. I think when I mentioned Region 1, we spoke about resuscitating the palm oil project. Because it is projects like that we need. Region 2, Pomeroon River, deepest river in the country. We are exporting a lot of coconuts and coconut water. We need to put down a commercial port in Pomeroon, which allows all those coconut producers now to get their product to the port side and into the Caribbean market quicker, cheaper. All those farms have to be upgraded, access to the farms, the farm to market or farm to port. Roads have to be built because we have to look at what it is that we can produce in Region 2 and at Charity or wherever we put down that commercial wharf, and those agricultural products can get there. In rice, we got to put a lot of time and research into improving the soil content. The only way you're going to up your yields is if you got research going on and the product of that research is going in to improve your soil content so that you can deal with it. So that's another area of big development in the non-oil sector. And we have a series of those. It will take a lot of time. I went through the 10 regions, but there are several of them, the plans that we have for that.
Nigel, thanks for that. I see a lot of folks in the comment section is asking for coalition. We need a coalition. We need a coalition. I think you already.
All I would say that is beyond me. It's not for me. I have said, Nigel Hughes, tomorrow morning, I am willing to walk away, find a consensus candidate. Carl Greenwich, whoever. Alliance for Change has always had Guyana as a priority. So this is not. I hear people saying that, but it's not. You're speaking to the wrong party.
Thank you, sir. Another thing, you spoke about a lot on some other serious issues that you want to see happen for Guyana. Let us talk a little bit now about justice and this whole thing about the Constitution. I think in one of your broadcasts you said that not the power that the president or the executive or the president has is too much. It should not have all that power, and that you're willing to have reform done and laws made in the parliament to reduce the power of the president. Expand a little bit on that for me, if you can.
Okay. Our Constitution, designed back in 1980, gave the president, who is the executive president, all the executive power. Not some, all of it. It also gave the president immunity from being sued while he's president. So you've really created a king or a queen or a god, because if they have all the executive power and you cannot prosecute them and they're not liable for what they do once they're president, then what check and balance do you have to restrain the president other than voting him and her out every 5 years? That position is complicated as a result of the CCJ decision arising out of our 2020 election difficulties, because the CCJ says that the only way a no-confidence vote will be successful is if all the members of parliament turn up and vote. So any party in office that is facing a no-confidence vote just has to ask one member. They probably wouldn't turn up at all. And you don't have anything looking like the possibility of a no-confidence vote. So really, we left the colonial era with the king and the queen and a prime minister who was responsible to the national parliament to put in our constitution a god, because he says, dear God, here is all the executive power and you're not liable for what you do. Second thing, the party that controls the legislature, once you get one seat more than everybody else combined, automatically gets the presidency. So you control both the executive, which is the executive government, and you control the legislature. And you have the situation you have now. You pass a budget and less than 2 months later, you want more money, you come back. It's a waste of time to debate, because you know what the result is going to be. There's no discussion going on here. So the first thing the Alliance for Change has said is that we are going to immediately, upon ascending office, slash the executive powers and reduce the immunities of the president. 2, we will make it immediately possible, if the other parties are prepared to support that, to have post-electoral alliances, post-electoral coalitions, like you have in Suriname. So you get 6 parties coming together, they get the majority. Our system is so ridiculous that if one party gets 40% and all the other parties get 20 or whatever, the party that gets 40% gets 100% of the power. And all this foolishness about consultation and Article 13, since the People's Progressive Party got into office, have you heard them call Mr. Norton, other than when they're dealing with the Chancellor, to consult, to find out what his people think? No, they say literally, we get a new road. That's progress. We give you a new hospital. That's progress. And shut your mouth because you are not entitled to have any part in the discussion or in the decision-making process. That is what we have as a constitution that everybody wants to hold on to. It is as stark as that. So if I get elected with my 50.1%, if I adopt the PPP's approach, I don't need to talk to anybody else, which is ridiculous. And in a country that is as divided as our country is, how are you seriously hoping to progress at the rate that is acceptable when you don't consult? You just tell people, we have improved this for you, be thankful and shut up.
The police force, sir, Mr. Hughes, the police force seems to be the biggest talk in the tongue right now. And by extension, discipline services, fire, prisons, the army, but particularly the police force. A lot of persons don't feel that they're getting justice from the police force, from the judicial system as well. Would you reconsider having a new police makeup with probably somebody?
Absolutely. Many things are going to happen in the police force, in law enforcement. The entire force has to be revamped because it is not delivering on its mandate. So we have to have external people supported by internal people review and make immediate recommendations for the police force. The police force lacks leadership. And for a long time, it has been perceived as a tool of the government of the day. So we have to restructure that. 2, the impunity which the Guyana police force has. They could shoot and kill people, running a bedroom shooter in Boston at 4 o'clock in the morning. Adriana Young, senior officer, can tell people, your daughter gone with a man. When the young lady was in the hotel. We will set up a civilian-led police authority that will be fully empowered to investigate. It will have its own investigators. It will be fully empowered to prosecute. And it will be fully empowered to take any action that is necessary to make sure those errant police officers face the consequences of their actions. We're not going to leave this to the police to do. Every single commissioner of the Police Complaints Authority has complained that they get no support from the Guyana Police Force when they're investigating members of the Guyana Police Force. No support. Everyone. Mr. Ramlal, Chancellor Kennard, the late Chancellor Kennard, you pick them, every single one of them has said so. When they send for documents and information, they don't get it. But that has to go. Clearly, you need an authority that has its own investigators, that can subpoena documents, can take those documents, and they will have their own prosecutors dedicated to it.
What about justice? I mean, the justice system in terms of the makeup of this whole thing, because we know that we have you have 2 senior judges, the Chancellor of the Judiciary and the Chief Justice, still there as acting in their capacity. We had a lot of protests on this matter. You had the president of the CCJ came out and said that you need to fix this thing. It's not looking good in the eyes of justice.
I think every president the CCJ has commented to Guyana that we have to sort this out. Our difficulty comes from the position that we have made the confirmation of the Chancellor and the Chief Justice a political act. It's just like senior counsel, it's a political act because the president got to decide. And if the president or the leader of the opposition cannot arrive at a decision, then those people are left acting after giving their entire professional lives to the service of the country at the level of the judiciary. That has to be revised. Now, how it has to be revised is really the question, because we ended up where we are because there is a perception that the people that get appointed to these positions have to have the approval of the politicians. And once you have a system especially in an ethnically divided country like Guyana, where the politicians decide or influence who heads the judiciary, you're in problems. Because the incentive is going to be, we want to have our man or our woman in that position. Now, the chancellor and the chief justice will only have one vote or one decision in any panel. Of course, they have control over the administration of the judicial system. But because Guyana is just so heavily malformed, for want of a better term, in everything, because politics pervades every living aspect of the society. If somebody got to go away in scholarship, it got to be a political decision. If somebody got to go away to represent the country, it got to be a political decision, which means we could only send people who we trust. You can't develop a country that way. You just cannot develop a country that way. So what I would say is that we have to devise a means outside of the political decision-making to identify the chancellor and the chief justice. And it may well be that we may want to vest this power in the Regional Judicial Service Commission of the CCJ. Because they are seeing the decisions that are coming up through the system. They are seeing the quality of work that is coming from the bench at the Court of Appeal level and at the High Court level, actually all the way through. And since they are determining who actually gets onto the Caribbean Court of Justice, I suspect that they should probably be reposed with the responsibility for deciding who should be confirmed as Chancellor and Chief Justice. Because we have demonstrated, we changed the Constitution in 2001, and since then, since Patricia Bernard, Desiree Bernard left, we have not had a confirmed Chancellor. Think about it. That's over 20 years, which means that we, the Guyanese, are incapable. We have failed. Don't put it anywhere else. We have failed. It's not PAPP failed, PNC failed, WPA failed, AFC failed. Collectively as a country, because civil society is part of the country, we have failed to actually agree on a chancellor, which means that we are incapable as a country, forget which political party, of arriving at a decision on consensus for the head of the judiciary. That's a sad indictment.
Indeed. Indeed, a sad indictment as well. And two, sir, one of the biggest problem we have, and I don't know how you're going to deal with this. I don't know what you're going to do about this. I don't know what reform you would recommend for this body. GCOM.
Let me tell you why GCOM, from my view, my humble view, why GCOM is fundamentally flawed. And it's flawed again because of politics in Guyana. The conduct of elections that is reposed, and the power to manage elections, which is reposed in a statutory body, should never be peopled by political appointees, period. Because if you have political appointees, they are going to feel that they're loyal to a particular political entity or political entities. So at a structural level, it is flawed. What you end up is 3 government commissioners, 3 opposition commissioners, and the opposition commissioners really come from one party, but that's secondary. And how are you hoping to have anything look like a credible election managed by these people? So what it does is it puts immense pressure on the chair. And what do you think will happen in a society like Guyana, fully divided all the way down? Everybody's going to try to put a chair that they could influence. And that is a recipe for disaster, because if you have politically nominated people as the key decision makers, 6 out of the 7 people are politically nominated, how you really hope to get anything looking like a credible election? In the rest of the Caribbean, they have citizens who are regarded as politically independent, or at least of such high professional standing that they wouldn't allow their reputations to be sullied by allegations, I ain't even gone to proof, by credible allegations of bias. those people exist in the rest of the Caribbean. But Guyana is an all or nothing game. So you can't, you ain't gonna find them. Because if Mary Jones and Brian Singh, credible citizens of high standing with no interest, come forward, Mary Jones is African, oh God, she got to be interested in the PNC. Brian Singh is Indian. The assumption is he gonna be interested. His interest will be in the PPP. And where are we going? Where are we going? How are we leaving this in the hands of politically nominated people? We need to develop credible systems where we have professionals and we have transparent processes, biometrics, everything else that can independently verify the actions of the people who are hired. But we are only sowing, well, we're not sowing the seeds, we have already planted them. We are reaping the consequences of our foolish political approach to everything. And therefore, once we believe that politics is the solution to all our problems or any of our problems, we gonna have problems. Because politics in Ghana invariably, unfortunately, comes down to race.
Onyx, you have any question?
My only question right now is, given the fact that we have one of the most, I think, important issue on the plate of every Guyanese, and that is the border controversy. When you get into office, the first thing that you plan and do in regards to that border controversy, can you lay it out to us, Mr. Hughes?
Okay. I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. What we need on the border controversy is we need the best people this country can put its hands on, irrespective of their political affiliation, to represent this country and advise all the political parties. I'm not gonna, if I become president, I alone dealing with the border. No, not at all. I will ask the leader of the major opposition parties, people who pass security clearance, because you have the matters that will be discussed that are highly sensitive, to identify the best people they think can help. Of course, I can call some names now. Carl Greenwich. There's no way you can possibly deal with the border and not have Carl Greenwich as one of your primary people. Riyad Insanali. You have, I'm not familiar with who the current experts are on the border, but we have had a long, distinguished history in this country of outstanding people dealing with that. And so that, to me, would be something that has to be bipartisan, and the major political parties, government and opposition, have to be fully involved in the way in which that is managed. Two, the population, particularly the communities on the border, we have to have an active program of keeping everybody informed. Must, absolutely. We can't leave it to hear the two soldiers get shot and you in a border community. I'm sure you have gone to indigenous communities.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to those communities, they are remote. They are sitting ducks. Community of 400 people sitting down, one policeman, probably a rural constable, nothing looking like any military presence, sitting down in the middle of the most pristine, beautiful country, but they're not protected. So we have to find a way to make sure that we have some standard procedures, and key to this is intelligence and information. It's not just the ambassador sitting in Caracas. We need to have the best information. It's going to cost us for satellite, but we got to understand what's going on. In this day and age, we can't take the chance. And the border is too important to this country for me to believe that I am capable, or that we are capable of hiring all the experts. No, it'll have to come from across the board.
Yeah.
Because
I know that you heard what Kamala Bissessar said pertaining to immigrants from Venezuela in our country, and this whole arms, talk between Venezuela and Maduro and all of that, and you sitting down in your own country trying to figure out, well, what's going on here, boy? What are we doing? What is your plan to deal with migration and immigrants and all of that? Those persons who are coming through our borders and in our country unchecked. How do we deal with it? How do we fix this?
Okay, couple of things in that. We have to have an immigration policy, whether or not we had the border crisis, because you can't become the fastest growing economy and people not want to come and migrate to your country or come and stay in the country for less than legitimate reasons. So you have to have a migration policy, period. You can't be a country like Guyana where the population is minuscule and not have an immigration policy. So the immigration policy is not because you have the border issue. You have to have a border. You have to have an immigration policy. You have to make sure that your people get the opportunity to develop and participate in the economy before other people can come in and displace them. So immigration policy is absolutely necessary. In an immigration policy, and this is before I come to the border, you have to decide what sort of immigrants you want. You want the educated ones, you want the ones that clearly are going to be an asset to Guyana. So you don't want an immigration policy that allows the criminal element to come and live in Guyana. You want an immigration policy that identifies the goals of the kind of person you want to be able to come and migrate to Guyana, live, work here. Because that kind of person determines the quality of development in the country. That's the first thing. That's before you get to the border. 2, where we have a problem on our border like we do with Venezuela, it is absolutely mandatory that we record each and every one of them wherever we find them, that we have a program that shows when they arrive, we have a program for monitoring what they do, and we have clear rules for the removal of those persons in certain circumstances. We can't just have an approach that says, "Oh, you come, it's economic, the economic migrants." How? And then where your foreign secretary says that 100,000, that is more than 1 in 10. That's almost 1 in 8 of the people physically in this country is Venezuelan. That's a scary number. Because if 1 in 8 persons physically in Guyana is from another country with whom we have a border issue, and it is not as if we have an immigration policy that says, look, if you are a male of military age between 18 and whatever it is, 32, you have more hurdles to cross if you want to stay in Guyana. Why? Because it's obvious. All Maduro has to do is send all the 18 to 32-year-old military trained, and they have, I believe, mandatory military service, and you have your ultimate Trojan horse sitting here.
Yeah.
And that's from a military point of view. We didn't even come to the state where, think of what 100,000 people, even if half of them could vote, who we are. We had what? 7,000 votes a seat? So where we at? 6 seats? 7 seats? This is scary because those Guyanese, particularly those that are in difficult economic circumstances, they can't pick up and fly and live in Miami or pick up and qualify to migrate to Canada. And then they see, and this happens in every migrant society, it's not Guyana. Migrants work for less wages than the official minimum wage. And it's just a consequence of being a migrant. You are prepared to put up with difficult circumstances and low wages because you know you're a migrant. So that means that automatically they're distorting the marketplace so that Guyanese who may be willing to work but cannot work at the same level of income are not going to get jobs. And then what's eventually going to happen? People got to live, right?
That's right.
There's very few people who sit down and say, well, I'm going to be poor and I ain't going to do nothing. Criminality is going to be an obvious development industry. And the problem with criminality is, with the weaponry we have today, once you let that genie out of the bottle, you can't put it back. Ask Jamaica. And we don't want, I keep pleading with our people, we don't even want to get to the level that Trinidad is at. Putting up higher and higher fences to keep out so-called criminals, where you have to get bodyguards to drive down the road if you're of a certain class. And God help you if you're poor and living in the ghetto, you have no protection. We don't want to get there because it's a hard walk back. And if we got 250 million narcotics passing through the country and Uncle Sam got to tell us where to find it, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Indeed. We have like about 5 minutes more to go. 5 minutes
I
more
do
to
have
go.
like 3 questions more to go.
You do?
But it can come together.
Go ahead.
Before you ask your last question, Andrew.
Go ahead.
I want to know, Nigel, what's your take on a presidential debate? That's one. And second, what message would you like to convey to the Guyanese, to the voters of Guyana, as election approaches, and how can citizens get involved in your campaign, the Lines for Change, and how do you plan to engage with the public during your candidacy?
Right. So what was your first question?
Presidential debates.
Okay. I think Donald Trump proved one thing. Presidential debates have little impact on the voters. It's an opportunity for people to show the candidates, to show where they stand and policy, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But Donald Trump demonstrated that it don't matter. And in Guyana, yes, it may be interesting to hear, one candidate debate against another. But I'm not sure that the fact that somebody is a better debater means that automatically they're a better president. I hear you. A lot of people want to have presidential debates and stuff. That's kind of like following the US thing. But it's really, for me, people have to understand what their choices are.
Yeah.
In the case of the AFC, we are clear what we're offering. But the PPP is very clear. No matter what they say, their words and actions speak for themselves. Whether it's Heroes Highway, whether it's Adriana Young, you know where you stand under the PPP. You don't need an election campaign for them to tell you. And unlike you and X, you carked up. So an election debate, I am not sure is the best barometer or best measure to determine who may be better qualified. I have no difficulty with it, but I'm just saying it has its limitations.
Yeah.
In relation to what the Alliance for Change is offering the public, we are offering the citizens, the voting public, a new republic, a new dispensation, one in which you will have a real chance to participate and benefit from the patrimony of this country. We are also offering a modern developmental plan, modern across the board, unseen, underpinned by making sure that we have a highly educated population, that we are working assiduously to make sure that we have the institutions that are transparent and can review our development, that we act as a responsible country, and that we have 15 to 20-year plans in key sectors, the economy, oil and gas, poverty, health, poverty reduction, borders, and the 5 key areas. We're saying, look, it's not only the AFC as in education, all the political parties must sign off on a broad plan for 15 years for how we're going to move our people from where they are today to where they're going to be in the next 5, 10, and 15 years, irrespective of who is sitting in office. In relation to the Constitution, it has been the one single instrument that has held back the real development of this country. You can't have a constitution that creates a god in the presidency. They can't have all the executive. The president can't have all the executive power and be immune from suit at the same time. Can't happen. And we have to make sure that we have consensus politics. So not because you get 50.1% of the vote, you have all the power. We have to have post-electoral alliances. So people are forced to come together and talk about programs that benefit everybody. In Suriname, the president has to be elected by 60% of the members of parliament. We want a system like that because we have been so divided for so long and it has never worked. And therefore, we need to try something else. And that's precisely what the Alliance for Change is saying. This is the new republic. This is the new way. We have it in ourselves to produce a world-class country, world-class education, world-class management of world-class assets like our oil and gas. That's where we are.
Well said.
Good. And the final question: how can persons get involved? As a leader, I think it's your
The
team.
The head office of the Alliance for Change. We're not very good at marketing. It's not in my nature. But anyway, the head office for the Alliance for Change is the Center for Change, which is at 124 Railway Line. It's just behind, sort of tangentially behind the Gaol station. That's where we are. We have an online presence on social media. So you don't necessarily physically have to go there. You can join by emailing us, messaging us, and we would walk through our plans with you. It's important for us that you understand what it is that we are selling and what we mean for a new Guyana.
My final question to you, sir.
You have these two handsome gentlemen here. You can contact them. They, of course, have very active social media presence. Onyx don't miss a beat. So
that's right. My final question to you, sir, before we go. I mean, a lot of persons are very concerned about two things: their health care and their retirement package, NIS. What kind of policy you see the Alliance for Change facilitating to ensure we have the best health care for all Guyanese, the best NIS package for all Guyanese, and finally, the most fantastic housing plan for young people and our people in general in this country? And I'm done.
For healthcare, and particularly for old people, the pensioners, apart from increasing the pension to somewhere around 100,000 plus, we have to appreciate that the pensioners perhaps have paid the greatest price. They struggled in Guyana when things were hard. And so they are entitled to free healthcare, for sure, free medication, for sure. And the quality of the public health service has to be superior to that of any private institution. And that the funding available to treat those diseases, chronic and otherwise, that are prevalent in our society, that they are fully funded. This situation where the public hospital never got drugs, but the private pharmacies do, that cannot happen. That cannot continue. And therefore, the systems have to be put in place to ensure that the drugs that are sent to the public healthcare system are distributed and administered by them. And there will be stiff penalties. In relation to healthcare, apart from upgrading the several national hospitals that we plan to put down, we will also identify specialist hospitals in different regions of the country. So there is no concentration of the specialist hospitals in Georgetown. I want to say this: every single new hospital that we build will have a helipad and a heliport, because when we have to medevac emergency persons from our interior, whether they are indigenous people or whether they are people working in the interior, we must be able to get them to the hospital in the shortest possible period of time. And this thing about during the night, you mightn't be able to get a medevac flight, absolutely unacceptable. So we will have a healthcare system that is on par with the best. And that is our commitment. I probably can't remember your third question.
Andrew. He's taken up. But
On
Nigel,
NIS, sorry,
go ahead.
NIS. No, it's Social Security. People
Yeah.
have to be socially secure.
Yes.
No.
Yes, that was NIS
NIS
and
stuff.
healthcare and housing. Housing was the last one.
Okay, housing. We have a very strange approach to housing in Guyana, and I say I'm going to use Diamond as an example.
Over the weekend activities.
How could you design a housing area with, I don't know, 25,000 people, and you don't have a park as an essential?
You don't have the necessities.
You don't have a park. I'm not talking about a football ground. I'm not talking about a cricket ground. There's no cricket ground there, but a park as part of the bare essentials for that kind of housing development. Under AFC administration, any housing solution, once it is above a specified number, must have a park with contemporary recreation facilities. 2, this giving away of 5,000 square feet in a country that got more land than most of the Caribbean is unacceptable. The average house that size got to go up to 8,000-10,000 square feet. And we have to build housing communities that have roads that last for, 15 to 20 years. You can't just got your new brand fancy house, probably playing a loan on your car, and you got to go through some spectacular craters in gravel and mud to get home. No, when we build a community, it will be a fully functional, state-of-the-art, modern community with all the basic amenities, parks, ball fields, community centers that actually have high-speed internet, and that the students from the neighborhood can go to those community centers and do their homework and have access to state-of-the-art facilities that will allow them to excel. It will be a learning center in each community. It'll be air conditioned. They'll have access to the high-speed internet. There will be facilities for them to be able to do their homework, and they will be monitored by competent persons. That's how we begin to build a new community, and the community has to be interconnected. And we have to make sure that we maintain the standard across the community, so that you don't have we didn't even touch this, building codes, and you can't have a man in a residential area who suddenly decide he's putting up a truck in business next door to you, and then all of a sudden they got a whole set of trucks park up in front of you. No, the zoning is going to be very rigidly enforced. Residential areas will be residential areas. You're setting up no hairdressing salon no, they're residential. If you say they're residential, they will be residential. And if you feel that you somehow can get planning permission and whatever it is you are doing, you think you might be able to get around the system, no. It's not going to happen. It's definitely not going to happen.
Not going to happen. Not going to happen. All right.
You talk about the residential. I passed in Atlantic in what you call there, Bel Air. That's right by Legacy, and I saw Chinese going up in that area. A Chinese supermarket. So I'm like, okay.
There's a residential area right down the road from me here. I think it's for the remigrant scheme. I see a couple of Chinese restaurants up there. Not restaurants, hardware stores.
Yeah.
People can't spend their money on building, their home that hopefully they'll be in it for a while. And then next thing, somebody next door put up a car wash. No. Not happening.
Nigel, are you concerned that the president calling elections and not pro-parliament? I mean, this dissolve the parliament as yet. Are you concerned that is some mechanism, there's some mischief afoot with this whole thing?
I think with the PPP, you gotta always assume there's mischief afoot. So I'm not. Let me say I'm not surprised. I think perhaps it's bait. The PPP probably baiting the opposition to go to court so that the elections can get postponed and they say, see, the opposition already. the PPP breaches the laws of this country with impunity, and they expect you to take them to court for everything. This is just, for me, kind of typical of the way that they would deal with the issues. I mean, right now, I think at the start of your program, I heard you speaking with Onyx. You actually have a candidate advising GCOM.
Oh, yes.
The general is a candidate. However you dress it up, he's a candidate. How could you have, it's like asking me, Nigel Hughes, to become GCOM's lawyer. Seriously? I mean, how could you have a candidate advising GCOM on how to apply the law? He's already said, look, if the opposition people walk out, you go ahead, you ain't got to pay attention to them. Says Claudette and the 3 PPP people going to run the elections. We can't be serious. I mean, we can't be serious as a country. Seriously?
And that's a problem. That's a serious problem. All right. That's Nigel Hughes Day for you this morning, ladies and gentlemen.
It was a great show.
We had
I hope the entertainment factor was high.
We had a ton of information with this morning, and we're so thankful that you have cleared up some information, unpack some of them for us. Most of them, the public is still hopeful that there's going to be a coalition. You're still open to a consensus candidate. You're still willing to give it all up as presidential candidate. Say, hey, we agree on this man. We can put this man in front and let him become the consensus candidate.
Or woman, buddy.
Or woman, man or woman. That's right.
Or woman.
A lot of women in there, both sides of the house, who could, if agreed upon, could fit that same bill as a man as well. Men as well could also suit that same bill as well, become the consensus candidate. Just waiting.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Nigel. A lot. Region by region, answer.
Thank you so much for the program. Right, that's Nigel there for you.
Andrew.
All of you on the campaign trail, trust me. It's going to be a robust campaign trail. Oh my word, I can't wait.
Yeah. Andrew, coming up at 12 though, we have Nation Watch. Marvin Williams with Assistant Commissioner retired Paul Slow, and Mr. Dexter Todd, attorney at law. That's gonna be a real good show.
Another one. Oh my! Wow! You gotta log in for that one, boy.
Exactly.
So thank you all. Stay tuned. The Nation Watch is coming up at 12, and we hope to see you join that broadcast and give your support to them as well. That's our program this morning. Oh, we have over an hour and a half here.
Yep.
Leader Line for Change, and we had so much to make news for the coming weeks.
I particularly liked when he unpacked region by region. That was really interesting and really educational, so that people can understand what is going to happen in different regions going forward.
All right, we gotta go. See you back here next Sunday for another edition of the Countdown. My name is Andrew. Goodbye. Have a great afternoon. It's a great